Okay, welcome to this session. I kind of have some flu here, so my voice is a little bit strange, and I'm sorry about that. So we've been looking at a number of things so far. You have defined what teaching is, you have defined what learning is. We've looked at philosophies of education, what possible implications they have to the way we do teaching, to the way we learn, all of those ones. We looked at different learning theories. We looked at learning styles. So I'm hoping as we're doing all of these ones, you will be able to put together all of these ideas that we're talking and integrate it into your own philosophy, your own understanding of what we mean by teaching, what we mean by learning. Partly the assignment that I have given you for you to work on, your educational philosophy, it will help you to integrate this one. And you will actually be able to demonstrate some of these things when you do your teachings, both in class and outside of class. So this one, we'll go to the section where we talk about 5 factors that underpin effective learning. You would have done this already in your workbook, and you should have submitted the learning log for that one already, but let's look what they actually mean. So it all comes from understanding how do we learn ourselves. What are the different things that hinder? What are the different things that encourage us in the learning process? So based on his study, Phil Ress has come up with these 5 factors that underline effective learning. And these ones are wanting to learn, needing to learn, learning by doing, and making sense of learning, and finally, the idea of feedback. So he's saying learning will be affected by these different factors. So these different factors have a certain level of contribution to the way we learn. The first one, he says, is learning, the wanting to learn, and then the needing to learn, and then the idea of practicing it, and then making sense of it, and finally feedback. So we'll look at each one of these ones quickly. When we talk about wanting to learn, according to what Phil Ress does, wanting to learn is when there is a very strong internal desire to learn something, and this is called intrinsic motivation. So wanting to learn is intrinsic. So if a student has a desire to learn something, then he will likely learn it. If he doesn't want to learn, if he's just there, forced, like a child who has been brought into a classroom and thrown into the classroom, and he's upset and he doesn't want to be there, it's difficult to get through to his heart and to teach him. But if there is a wanting to learn, then it will be easier to teach. And therefore, one of the ideas is when we teach, it's important for us to cause the students to want to learn by showing them what you have to teach and how relevant it is for them. And as they see it and you create that wanting to learn, that intrinsic motivation, then you have passed one hurdle in being able to teach. Question is, will someone learn without a desire? Like if you put a student in a classroom and he doesn't desire to be in that classroom, would that student learn? For the most part, that won't happen. So as a teacher, you and I have a certain level of responsibility to show why they want to learn it, what you have and how important it is, and create the wanting to learn. The second one is the needing to learn. This one is extrinsic. It is from outside. Needing to learn is strongly linked to the previous factor, to the wanting to learn, and is also a motivator for learning. However, whereas wanting to learn comes from within us, needing to learn is something that is external, which is why some people call this extrinsic motivation. So needing to learn is externally imposed. For example, some of you may be taking this course, and it may not be because you really want to be in this class, but you are taking this class because you need to take this class in order for you to graduate. So the school has said, Binyam, you need to take this course. Without this course, you will not be able to graduate. And therefore, you are coming into the classroom and you are taking the class because you need to. But I have a responsibility here. Even though you have come into the classroom because you need to, you're motivated to be in the class because you need to, but then I need to take you from needing to learn to wanting to learn as a teacher. Meaning, I need to show you the relevance of whatever we're learning and be able to, as a result of showing you why it is important for you, hopefully the extrinsic motivation will be transferred into intrinsic motivation. It becomes intrinsic. You want to do it. Because when it becomes a wanting to learn, then it becomes something that will be lasting. Wanting to learn and needing to learn, both of them are motivational issues. They have to do with motivating the student to do something. To do something. So it's like a motivational issue. Build the need. When the learner has a desire and or need, they are motivated. Okay, so when a student recognizes that he wants or he needs to, there is a certain level of motivation. But like I said, the needing to learn needs to kind of move into an intrinsic motivation, and eventually it will if it is done well. I'm sure some of the questions that you've answered is there are certain things, certain classes, certain things you've done which you didn't want to be doing initially, but then as a result of doing it, you began to see its importance, you began to like it, and it became intrinsic, and you wanted to do it. The key is to tie what you want to teach the students to what they want to learn. So as a motivational factor, what you want to be doing is you want to relate what you want to teach to what the students want to learn. I have this beautiful picture here. You have this horsey here, and the horse has seen the apple on the tree, so he's not going where the guy wants him to go. So he keeps going back to the tree, wanting the apple. So the horse wants the apple, and the guy wants the guy to go in a certain direction. He wants the horse to go in a certain direction. So what he ends up doing is, see how he struggles. So now he holds the apple right in front of the horse. That's what the horse wants. So he holds what the horse wants in front of him, and he is able to guide him wherever he wants him. So the idea is to relate what you want to teach the students to what they actually want to be learning. The third principle he has, the third factor, is making sense of learning. This is the idea of digesting it. This is where the learners not only gather information, but they understand what they are learning, converting the information into their knowledge. So, wanting to learn, and there is a need to learn, motivated. And then you give them the information. But you don't want to just give the information. You don't want the students to just be cramming information. But you want the students to be able to digest the information, to be able to make sense of it, to be able to understand it. That's the idea here. Understand it such that it stays in their mind for a longer period of time. So the search for meaning is in it. Everybody wants to make sense of whatever they're learning. You tell them something, they don't just forget it. They try to make sense of it. Each person seeks to make sense out of what he or she sees or hears. The learning to prior knowledge build on the students' prior knowledge. One of the things to have this is to have the students understand what they're learning is to relate it to their prior knowledge. So when you build on the knowledge that they already have, they'll be able to make sense of what they're learning. So building on prior knowledge is the key. So the third point is helping the students to make sense of what they're learning, not just dropping information into their minds, but helping them to make sense of it, relating it to what they have already learned. The fourth one is learning by doing. Learners are allowed to practice, to make mistakes, to discover, etc. So this has to do with, okay, they had wanted to learn or needed to learn. You gave them the information, they made sense of it, and then they want to be able to do it. How does this work? So getting them to practice whatever you have been teaching them. So this is the idea of doing it, practicing it, making mistakes from it. They say our brain has different parts, but to focus on, there is the short-term memory and there is the long-term memory. They said the short-term memory lasts for 20 to 30 seconds. So information that goes to the short-term memory, it will be there for about 20, 30 seconds, and then it disappears. It will be gone. So when the information comes to our mind, it goes to the short-term memory, and what you want to do is you want to attach that information to a certain level of significance. Help the students to attach significance to it, to that information, so that it will transfer to the long-term memory. If I tell you my number, 0920665195, now you may remember just few of those numbers, and usually they say it's 7 plus or minus 2 things that we can remember in our heads, like 7 or 9 numbers, for example. If you can remember all of the things right away, you're a brilliant one. Okay, and they last only for 30 seconds max. Even if you remember the numbers that I told you now, even if you remember like 6 of the digits, the numbers, after 30 seconds, most of them will be gone, unless we attach a certain value to it, unless I say, you need to remember my number so that you can call me later. Okay? So you want that to go into the long-term memory, where it will be staying for a longer period of time. And I'll skip this one for now. The memory, when objects and events are registered by several senses, not just auditory, but several senses, auditory, visual, with a handwriting, with things that we do, and all of those ones, different sensory senses. They can be stored in several interrelated memory networks. Conversation helps us. One of the things that helps to remember is conversations. When you talk about it with other people, with that conversation, what was the number, and you talk about the numbers, or you talk about some experiences. So the more you talk about it with other people, that thing is likely to be remembered. So conversation helps us link ideas, thoughts to our own related memories. Students need time for this to happen. And so some of the things are storytelling, debates, simulations, games, conversations, role play, songs, films. As you use different teaching instructional strategies, you're coming to the same idea, but you use different ways to help the students to link whatever you're teaching them. So that will help them to remember it. The brain is a social brain. The brain develops better in concert with others. When students have to talk to others about information, they retain the information longer and more efficiently. Okay, that's what we just said. Make use of small groups, discussions, teams, pairings, and question and answers. So all of these ones where you allow the students to talk with one another, with each other, helps them to be able to remember that. Move the information you're giving them from the short-term memory to the long-term memory, where they will be able to remember it longer. The last one is learning through feedback. So we get feedback from reflection on the learning experiences as we think about it ourselves. So we can give feedback to ourselves as we reflect on the things that we're learning. But it's not only ourselves, it's not just a self-reflection, but we also get reflections, feedback from fellow learners, friends, trainers. If you're a teacher and you're teaching, you can ask your colleagues to come into the classroom and watch you, and they can give you feedback. Okay? Now, learning task for us to consider. Maybe you can try this and see. Considering the 5 factors and also the 4 learning styles proposed by McCarthy. You remember we talked about learning styles. Okay? How do you think they may fit into a lesson plan? So now we can begin to think of a lesson plan. And we saw from Phil Rice's idea, there must be a wanting and a needing to learn. You create motivation. And then you get the students to be able to learn, make sense of the things that they're learning, where you give them the information and they process it, they try to understand it, and then you make them to learn by doing. And finally, the idea of feedback. So see if you can connect that with the idea of the question